True Detective Season 4 seems a lot like the first season. Two detectives with a tense relationship chase a killer in a dead town. But when you look a little closer, you find that everything is wrong. By the end of the season, I was asking myself, what happened to True Detective? There's countless answers, but one stands out. True Detective started treating us like we're dumb.
It's just a story.
Season 1 of True Detective has the best duo ever written, Rust Cohle and Marty Hart. It's hard to describe Rust, which is the point. He's about as complicated as a character gets. He thinks of himself as superior to others, so he doesn't take other people seriously. But in reality, Rust doesn't value his own life at all, and spends his time trying to save others, because deep down, he thinks they deserve saving more than he does. Marty may seem simpler than Rust, but that's just a trick the show plays on you. Marty thinks of himself as a grounded, common family man, but he cheats on his wife, and when push comes to shove, he thinks he's smarter than most people, just like Rust. Whereas Rust denies the good in himself, Marty denies the bad. There's something very real about Rust and Marty. Like, you could imagine actually running into them at a bar. That's because people in real life are complicated and unpredictable, and so are great shows. As a cherry on top, Rust has some of the greatest quotes in TV history.
This place is like somebody's memory of a town, and the memory's fading. What do you think the average IQ of this group is, huh? People incapable of guilt usually do have a good time.
Season 4 of True Detective replaced complicated with simple. On the surface, it seems like Jodie Foster's character, Danvers, is a lot like Rust. She's a strong-willed detective who may rub people the wrong way, but ultimately has a heart of gold. They even both have kids who passed away. The difference between Rust and Danvers, though, is that Danvers' flaws aren't really flaws. She works too hard, but it's just because she cares so much about her job. She says the wrong thing in social situations, but that's just because she's more honest than anyone else. Danvers' only clear flaw is that she's racist. In a lot of ways, she's basically Inspector Todd in Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Inspector T, how you doing? Where the f*** you been, Foley?
When you remove all the nuance from Rust, you get Danvers, who's so much more predictable. Paul Thomas Anderson always says the worst thing you can be is ahead of a story. Danvers does and says exactly what you think she will from the first episode on, and the opposite is true about Rust. Predictable is just boring.
Not a Beatles fan, okay?
If you like this kind of video, make sure to subscribe for more. The key to a great show is distinct characters. If you think about Breaking Bad, or Seinfeld, or Succession, there's not much overlap between the characters. Each one has a different, distinct personality from the rest, which is where so much of the conflict and realism comes from. Season 4 of True Detective finds a way to do the exact opposite. Every important female character is almost exactly like Danvers. They're all tough, smart women who speak their mind, and they're all battling some kind of trauma. Think about it. Danvers, Navarro, Rose, Kayla, Leia. Their personalities are basically the same. The foundation of Marty and Rust's relationship is how different they are, in almost every way. On the other hand, watching Navarro and Danvers is like watching someone talk to a mirror.
They would have had the whole fucking police force out looking for a white ass.
Oh, no, you're not gonna blame her on me.
If you had to pick the single biggest strength of True Detective Season 1, it would be the dialogue. They may be smarter than me, but the way Marty and Rust talk feels like arguments I've had with my friends. Most importantly, the show doesn't give us an easy answer to the questions it raises, because there isn't one. It asks us things like, would the world be better without religion? Do people have free will? Is it more important to be honest or kind? Each time, the show gives us a fleshed out version of both perspectives, but it doesn't tell us what to think. As usual, Season 4 took the obvious approach. The dialogue is just a mix of frustration and discussion about the case, which is easy to follow, but not very interesting. They try to paint over the blandness in a predictably simple way, by having the characters swear, over and over and over.
The f*** you are.
All I'm picking up is your shitty fucking attitude. Where's that fucking song?
Fucker's not gonna die.
Even if we don't consider characters, Season 4 of True Detective is still weaker than Season 1. For a show that's so simple, the case the detectives are solving this season is incredibly convoluted. The Salal Lab is researching something to save the world, and for some reason, the only way they can melt the ice to do the research is by polluting. Multiple people taken by Annie become zombies, but a lot of them don't, and we still don't know the difference. They find a tongue at the original scene of the crime, and it sets the whole case off, but they never explain how it got there, or why. There are so many loose ends in this story, it's hard to keep track. Mysteries are supposed to have twists and turns, but twists only work when you have a direction in the first place. On top of everything, the climax of the season is one of the weakest ever. It turns out that the women who cleaned the research lab found evidence of the same murder Navarro investigated years ago. So the women solved the crime themselves, and to get revenge, they led the researchers out to be taken by an ancient spirit. That's the big payoff of the show. Think about how thrilling it was when Rust and Marty are rushing through the maze, hearing the echoes of the Yellow King, until they finally come face to face with pure evil and barely survive. That climax is infinitely more satisfying than what we got from the 4th season.
I knew my daughter waited for me there.
Not much is worse than a preachy show that has nothing interesting to say. And unfortunately, that's what the 4th season of True Detective is. The conflict is driven exclusively by the evils of society, but the show gives no interesting perspective on those evils. It feels like they're trying to take on everything at once, and in doing so, they didn't really take on anything. Pollution, racism, sexism, police corruption, corporate greed, science going too far, the destruction of native identity and communities, white colonialism, treatment of the mentally ill, masculinity. It's like this season of True Detective crams as many societal problems as possible into its story, but it doesn't say anything interesting about any of them. You can sum up the show's perspective on all of these issues with 3 words. They are bad. Racism is bad. Pollution is bad. These are the kind of lessons taught to kids when they're 5 years old. They're important, but if you're trying to make an original show, you need a unique perspective, and season 4 is far from having one.
The cops? That would change nothing.
You may be seeing a theme. As usual, the conflict in season 1 of True Detective is everything season 4 should have been. With such diverse characters, they're able to craft conflict in a way that feels earned. We understand why Marty is getting frustrated with Rust, because Rust is the inverse of everything Marty thinks he is. Their conflicting approaches to the case make sense, because their approach to everything is conflicting. The conflict in season 4 routinely comes from powerful, faceless forces working on a government level. It's impossible to connect with those kind of obstacles the same way we connect with Marty's deteriorating marriage. Unlike season 4, the first season gives us something we've never seen before, or since.
Just want you to stop saying odd shit, like you smell a psychosphere or you're in someone's faded memory of a town. Just stop.
I shouldn't be surprised that this is the most popular season of True Detective ever. Simple tends to sell, but I am surprised at how positive the reviews have been. Season 4 has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is higher than the first season. Sure, Rotten Tomatoes usually goes easy on shows, but they're not alone. Rolling Stone called it the best finale True Detective ever had. These positive reviews almost feel like rage bait, because every review I've seen on YouTube is negative. I've even seen posts on Reddit wondering if this show was secretly AI written, and I get the feeling. If you asked ChatGPT to write a season of True Detective like the first season, it would give you something like Danvers and Navarro. True Detective just got renewed for another season off of season 4's success. I hate to admit it, but I love the first season so much that I might have to give this new one another shot. Let's just hope Issa Lopez makes something a little more complicated this time around. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep a lookout for future videos. I'll see you soon.